Hello and welcome to the Daktronics Experience Podcast. Today we are on site at Allianz Field, the home of the Minnesota United. We're here with Cole Mayer. He's the production engineer for the Minnesota United FC. And we also have Chris Johnson with us, our product manager. Cole, can we start with you and get a little history of your background on how you got to be in the position you're in today?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, actually. So I went to high school at Washington High School and got experience with Daktronics video boards with the Sioux Falls Arena and Howard Wood Field. And kind of knew that, after senior year of high school that I wanted to do this as a career and how do I set myself up for success to do that. And I moved to the Twin Cities because it's a big market. There's a lot of video boards here. Oh, yeah. Hamlin is where I went to school, and that's a small Division III school that's not too far from where we're at, actually. And so I was able to help out with their kind of like live stream productions, but then I also worked as a student worker for the University of Minnesota, getting hands-on experience with the Daktronics show control, their, major control rooms and all of that stuff. So I did that for 4 years as an undergraduate student. When I graduated, I did a year and a half up at St. Cloud State University, running their hockey center video boards and kind of doing their in-stadium presentation. And luckily for me, I wanted to do soccer too. I did an internship with Sporting Kansas City as a sophomore, lived a summer in Kansas, got the full MLS experience. It was awesome. Knew that's what I wanted to do. Wouldn't it be great to do that in Minnesota, knowing that Minnesota United was probably going to be a Major League Soccer team? And sure enough, they built a new stadium, and the person that worked with me over at the U got a full-time job with Minnesota United as kind of the game presentation producer, and he fought for a production engineer because he kind of knew that was an important. Once you build a new stadium, you need someone to run all that equipment and manage that control room. So I was hired in January of 2019, right before the stadium opened in April, and I've been here ever since. So it's my dream job. It's where I want to be, and couldn't ask for a better setup, honestly.
I'm kind of curious. What's your observation of, as you kind of moved from different levels, right? You worked at video boards at the high school level, and then the college level, and now you're here at the professional level. What kind of scale do you see, and how do you see the operation change throughout different levels of sport?
I'd say it's more tools in your tool belt. Yeah. Show control was definitely something that Howard Wood Field used a lot, but they also had a TriCaster and, that kind of setup. You're running videos, but, you don't have as much content.
Right.
So it's, as we move to the college level, you have people that are doing their full-time jobs creating content for their video boards for their school. So, and then as you get to the professional sports, you're paying an outside company to create, your bigger moments, like your intro videos and whatnot. So as more resources come available, that kind of scale grows. But I would say, the opportunity for learning show control at a high school student level and knowing the same buttons that, my people are pushing today running a professional stadium, it's, that experience, they just get better and better as operators.
Right.
And that's like that steady growth, and show controls like very, very user friendly. I mean, we kind of all know that. And when you can sit somebody down, show them how to create a button, this is what you're playing, this is how you're doing it.
Right.
And you teach them a few steps, then the world is open to them, and they can, mess around and make whatever they want. And that's like where the benefit of a high school is, because I guess I've said it this way. I went to Hamlin, Division III school. Mm-hmm. They were just happy to have something, right? If you got the score on the live stream, without a score bug or whatnot, now it's easy to do. But back when I went to school, not that I'm old, but it was a lot to get a CG sort of like score bug on a live stream for us, because we didn't have a resource, we didn't have any of that stuff. And so they were just happy to have something. As I moved to St. Cloud, okay, now let's put some thought behind this. Let's have a little bit more of a plan, but anything can go, basically. They just want higher quality content.
Sure.
And then as you move into the professional realm, you're expected to have this and that and all kinds of other bells and whistles to your show. So,
sure.
Yeah.
So then even moving up through those levels, you were familiar with show control before you got to Allianz Field, and it opened in 2019, like you said. And were you ready to have all those tools and kind of put them together? Was there some excitement on your side to say, hey, we've got this stadium and we're doing this way, and I've got these extra tools in my tool belt?
Yeah. I guess like it's understanding what show control can do.
Yeah.
And when you're building a stadium and opening a stadium, like you're literally building new buttons and doing all of that stuff. And you have a couple days of training and support, but you're also like, well, I don't know if I want our look to be like this.
Yeah,
and
sure.
you're asking for people's opinion. Like you're mapping out your LEDs. Are these the sizes you want? Is
Sure.
this what your in-game look is? Is this, are you changing between looks? We have a long skinny board, so are you gonna cut all of our content to be not 16:9 friendly,
Yeah.
or are you going to try to keep it 16:9
Right.
friendly? And those are kind of the decisions you have to make, and it's a trial and an error, and we're supposed to be the experts on what that looks like, and I'd say we succeeded in that. We haven't changed a lot since 2019 either, just from we did it right. There was not a lot that we needed to change.
Right.
And I was just gonna say that's really interesting when you think about that, right? Like every production you walked into already had buttons, already had something there, and you get to start from scratch. And I bet that's equally terrifying as well as exciting, where it's like we can do whatever we want from here. And it's interesting you said you really haven't changed it much because you feel like you did nail your theme right away, and you kind of run with that and enhance it from there.
Yep. Yeah. It's all the buttons, from the dimming buttons to
Yeah. It's a lot of work.
taking all of that. So it's a brand new show control machine, right? And
Right.
that's part of opening a stadium is building it right the first time.
Yeah.
I would say content management is probably the biggest one there.
Okay. And then you've been doing this for 3 years here at the stadium, and you've kind of learned different things along the way. Like you said, it's not too different, but you probably refined a little bit and learned a little bit as you went. And now you're going to be hosting the MLS All-Star Game here. What's that like? Is there the excitement for that, or are you changing things on the board just for the game?
We're not changing a whole lot. They've kind of looked to me and my colleagues to kind of keep things the same or
Okay.
do what's best for our stadium, since we kind of know how to run it and whatnot. And it's just trying to figure out how to enhance their moments. I mean, the biggest thing for the All-Star Game is really not the game is big too, but that's just a soccer game. We have the skills challenge, which is a soccer event, and that's like it's not a soccer game. So
Sure.
that's like, how do you enhance that? How do you do a different sport with soccer in your stadium? They have timers, but it's not, the clock is meaningless in soccer, but for a skills challenge, the clock is one of the most important things. And that's, how do you manage that? How do you, be able to put that clock on a bunch of different displays in the building? And then they have event scores, and then they have, the overall team score, and then you have player individual scores for the skills challenge. So, that's kind of taken up a lot of the time.
Sure.
But All-Star is just as big with a bigger presentation. It's the pregame. Soccer doesn't have a lot of breaks, so it's how do you build out that pregame introduction moment to be a big grand event that you're used to seeing and
Sure.
and everything.
Yeah, that's something I didn't think about, is the skills challenge that goes with it, and you're hosting that as well. That's interesting to hear the difference of the clock, and it's important for this, and it's just kind of running for this for each half type of thing. So interesting to see how different elements that go with the All-Star Game. You hear the All-Star Game, you think of the big game, the grand production before the game, but that's another side of it that you also have to prepare for. Looking into other things, like I know you just hosted a recent game from a Premier League team. Are there any other big memories that stick out? I know that game was fresh in your memory and kind of a highlight, maybe.
Yeah, Everton came to town back in July, and that was English Premier League. That was a pretty big game for us. We won 4-0, so that's exciting from a standpoint, but just the level of elevation that English Premier League brings when we play them on here or at Allianz Field, and we can show them our stadium, and Everton has that history. It's like we're playing the Twins playing the Yankees, I guess, not really because they do, but like just in that kind of like we're a small team, but then you're playing a bigger team that's well known and has millions of followers across the world. So
sure, and then you got to host them at Allianz Field, which we said, but you've also got some technology here from Daktronics, some displays. You mentioned them a little bit, and the different aspect ratio and how you work with that. Can you tell us a little bit of what it was like to have brand new technology in 2019 and how you've kind of worked with it to enhance the game experience?
Yeah. I would say, stats are one of those things that aren't that important in soccer, but, providing stats is something that we wanted to do from day one. And we were fortunate to have actual displays that are above our supporter section that we display those numbers and digits and passing percentages, shots, fouls, saves, corners, all of that stuff. And one of those things that we recently just got was All-Sport Pro Soccer, and Chris and his team kind of came out and let us beta test it, and that's really changed just how we have been able to display the stats, but also what we do with that information once it's in the system, and that's just enhanced our clock operator. There's not a lot of stop and stop or start and stop in soccer. So, giving our clock operator, instead of just waiting to hit +1 for a goal, now she's keeping track of shots, saves, fouls, all of that normal stuff. She's keeping up to date with passing percentages and possession percentage. But then she's also managing the substitutions and building out that kind of game summary of this person got a yellow card, this person subbed in for this person scored the goal. And that's all through All-Sport Pro Soccer. And we can take that information and then put it on other displays within the building. And that's just a little extra step that, at the 63rd minute mark, if you're a fan and you look at our GIP, you can see, in the 3rd minute, so-and-so got a yellow card. And we scored I don't remember when we scored. The 13th minute is, and this person scored and this person was the assist. And that just is little things, as you build out your show and you, I guess it's like game presentation in general, the things that we notice when we go to other facilities, it's what little intricacies that you do to your venue that give it that kind of like, maybe not everybody looks at that, but it's there and you put the time and effort there, and that makes it special and different.
Yeah, it's something a little extra. And I was going to ask if all those stats were ready to be put on the displays at any time, but we kind of look at that and say the more data that you have, the more of a story you can tell around the event. Like you said, that game summary, and like having it available for anybody to just look at any time and be like, I forgot what minute we scored. I remember it was pretty early in the game. What minute was it? Okay, it was this, and they can check that stuff out. It just kind of adds an extra connection to the game. So that's kind of what All-Sport Pro Soccer has brought for you. And you mentioned a lot of the different capabilities. Is there any one that sticks out that is like the most important to you or the most exciting to you to have?
The substitutions is huge. Building out the rosters, putting player names and cards in there. When we do have a substitution, we try to get that information out right away. I mean, we have somebody down at the fourth officials table at midfield on comms, coming up to our producer saying so-and-so is going in for so-and-so. And so then we're turning around that information, and it's 2 clicks of a button for our All-Sport Pro operator, and then we trigger a show control button that changes our game in progress, our supporter section displays, and it has our graphics that's all Media RTD information that's being triggered and pulled from All-Sport Pro, and that's helped. Before we did it with the person or our show control operator typing in the numbers of the players, and it was more pre-built cards. But this way, we're able to take first name, last name of the person, pull it all together, put the team logo in there, build a red arrow or a green arrow, and play out that content just to those supporter displays for 30 seconds or whatnot as the PA announcement's going.
Okay. And I think this is something we talked about like right away when we started installing All-Sport Pro with you guys, is that Media RTD usage is really critical when you have that data, right? That when you have this list of data and all of those substitutions and rosters you can use, representing that Media RTD seems like it's almost the secret sauce to all of it, right? It seems like with your production.
Yeah. I've used Media RTD for a lot. We use it for little dots on our game in progress for substitutions.
Yeah.
And we use the penalty kicks button for that. How do you maximize your technology that's provided to give those little tiny moments, but to make it look and feel like the way you want it to in your venue. And that's, All Sport Pro has been able to help us with that and streamline our processes on just how do you get that information and turn it around. There's not a lot of information in soccer, but substitution, yellow cards, red cards, that's all stuff that needs to get out there. And it's a PA. Whenever our PA is reading, there's a graphic and data behind that, and that makes it different and special.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious when you talk about more the clock operation, the score operation stats. What's the biggest change you've seen between you all use the All Sport 5000 even earlier this year versus using All Sport Pro now? More a shift in the way that a game is scored, more on a graphical look than the All Sport 5000 box. What's maybe the biggest change you've seen with the scoring side?
I would say like just the user friendliness of it. Instead of you're using a keyboard and a mouse or an iPad to type in that information, and instead of a physical box and buttons that is kind of, I would say, older. I mean, the All Sport hasn't really changed in a while, so that training somebody in, it's not you push this button to do this, you got to scroll through a menu. It's like, this is how you type in the names. Like we use MediaRTD to pull the logos for our game in progress, and that's the guest team abbreviation. And so, you load all those logos in, and as long as you type in the 3 character digits, it'll pull that and put it into the game in progress. Instead of uploading a new game in progress every single game, you're just typing in 3 characters, and, everywhere that logo is supposed to be is now there. And that's,
nice.
Streamlines the, as you're turning it around, game from Wednesday to Saturday. It's, you're not replacing a lot. You're just changing out a few things from the data side, and it's easy.
Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned the training and training a person on it. What was the implementation of it like when we brought All Sport Pro to you and said, okay, we're gonna integrate this with the rest of your system? How did that kind of go, that installation process?
Yeah. It took a little while. Chris had to kind of convince me because the clock is important in soccer, and you don't want it to stop. So, Chris came with one of the developers, Glenn, and we did it. We were like, this is the game. Chris is here. Like, let's turn it on. We had our field engineer here as well as like event support. And that first game, it was like, all right, we can do this. Because also, like, I didn't want to just give All Sport Pro to the operator and say, figure it out.
Right. Exactly.
It's like, I want the guy that developed it, sitting next to her, so she can click the buttons and, this is a bug, this is an issue. And I would, setting the time, we changed the time from when the gates open, it runs down to 0, and then we have to set it to 20 minutes really quickly. And just how do you set the time? That's a basic function that you need to be able to show somebody on how to do, and with the presets too, to just go from pregame to first half to halftime to second half without having to push 3 buttons. Now it's just 1 button. It speeds up the time a lot. So
the main clock, right? Super important, and I think that's something that when you look at even driving other things in your venue, we worked on the video board, but obviously getting to locker room clocks and all that stuff too, that is like the most important data element, it seems like, for any venue. And soccer, you said the main clock, it's a little less stringent than like a basketball game, but still super important, it seems like. And it seems like that needs to be represented super importantly at every site.
Yep.
So with the implementation now, you've kind of ironed a few things out. You've been using All Sport Pro Soccer for a little bit now. You'll be using it for the All-Star Game as well, is that correct?
Yes. We will for the All-Star Game, and then I believe I'm going to be sending the Skills Challenge, the main clock feed as well.
Okay.
What's nice about that is, it's a web GUI. So one of the things with the Skills Challenge is like they operated the clock out of the broadcast truck last year, and it was like, well, we have a clock, and you should use All Sport Pro. So we're going to, put a laptop in their broadcast trailer, and they can hit stop and start on the clock, and we can send that data to them. And that's as long as you have the network connection, like that's going to be revolutionary, because it's like with the All Sport 5000, you're not you're not going to be able to put, there's only one spot in this building that could be. But now with All Sport Pro, I can change any port in the building as long as it's on the Daktronics network and hit stop and start from anywhere. Or you could do it over your phone if we had the Wi-Fi for it. So like that's crazy to think about, because it was like, during COVID, it was like there's one person that has to be in that room outside of the audio board person, and but everyone else could move out. The clock operator had to be in the control room, and with All Sport Pro, if that would have been during COVID, you could have put that person in their own booth somewhere, anywhere.
Nice.
And they could stay at home
and
remote into a computer.
That added flexibility. Yeah. A lot of people were staying at home at that time, so that would make sense. But is there anything coming up for the All-Star Game that you're looking to kind of make a splash with? Like you said, you wanted to do kind of a bigger intro. Is there anything you can talk about without giving too much away?
There's not a whole lot that it seems like we've been talking about All-Star for so long that there's so many things that is probably in my mind that, we'll do. It's really just that expanded footprint. You're going to have 5 or 6, broadcast trucks here, and you're going to have to do all of the normal video operations that you're used to doing with just one. Then their content's going to be completely different than our content. So you're rebuilding a show. You're loading in a lot of new content, and how the skills challenge, how you get that data from them and back, just for the skills challenge. But then for the game, it's what kind of stats can we display? What kind of highlights and information can you season stats or provide for these players that, being in Minnesota, we have 2 All-Stars on the team, our goalie Dane St. Clair and Emmanuel Reynoso, who's a midfielder. So our people will know who they are, but who else is on the team? And that's working with the producer for the Major League Soccer that's doing the event on just how do you get that information and how do you make it a memorable moment for everyone here.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the ability of the digital displays to have different content on them, to rebrand it for All-Star Game, that's obviously something that's going to happen. You said different content, but you can host those different types of events and skills challenges, and you've got the flexibility of the control room that you can do that. So that's awesome to hear. And also, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history of Allianz Field. Do you have any bigger memories from the past 3 years that have happened that kind of stick out in your mind?
Yeah. I mean, opening a stadium is just crazy. Like, I'm happy to say that I did it. Would I do it again? Probably, but I'd learn from that experience, because it's not something that everybody gets to do. And hired in January, going to our game was April 13th, so I think the month of March is still a blur to me. It was coming in at 8 a.m. and not leaving until 2 a.m. just to you're building everything. There's a lot of training. You're doing a lot with just, you're doing switcher, replay, cameras, all kinds of stuff. And then you don't know, is this, what I'm learning right now, is this the way we're going to do this?
Yeah.
Like, is this going to be our workflow, or are we going to have to completely change it? And IPTV was one of those things too. You got to learn all of that and just, control over 200 TVs in the building. So that's kind of like remembering opening a stadium, which is a memorable moment. But then also, like, for bigger events, we had that year, I think we had drone racing league here, so that was kind of cool.
Nice.
They used our displays and they fly at night. So that year I was here till 4 or 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Just from they were here in the summertime, so they couldn't start flying until about 11 o'clock. But they used our stadium lights. They used our the facade on the outside of the stadium changes color. They used the LED and kind of built out a game. It's more of a live to tape show, but for that was like our first non-soccer event too.
Okay.
And it was, how did they maximize the technology of the building just from like an infrastructure standpoint.
Yeah.
And to marry broadcast booths together, or, we had enough infrastructure and we figured it out. And that's knowing that we could do something that's not soccer in a soccer facility is, we were built for soccer first, but knowing that we can use the infrastructure and the control room and everything else to do a non-soccer event, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that was, you said, was your first non-soccer event. Do you host many non-soccer events at the facility as well, or is it just kind of when they come up?
Yeah, it's when they come up. I mean, we've had the U.S. men's national team and women's national team here. We had the Minnesota Opera here during COVID, so that was kind of cool as an outdoor venue for them.
Yeah.
That was like technically our first concert. That there was only like 1,000 or 2,000 people here.
Sure.
We did in 2019. We had a football game with the Tommy Johnny St. Thomas and St. John's.
Okay.
And so that was actually the day before our first playoff game in 2019. So that was a full turnaround. Play football and then go play soccer the next
wow.
day.
Just keep it coming.
Yeah, yeah. In 2019, and then in 2019 you open a stadium, everything's great, and then 2020 happens.
Yeah.
And then you have 2 years of nothing.
Adjusting.
And, and so 2022 is kind of this year of like, what did we do in 2019? What's it like to have fans again? What's it?
Okay.
What did we do in our show that we should try to change? Like we have to remember like what we did in 2019 and how do we enhance it and how do you make that better? And we just tried to survive in 2020 and 2021 because it was really, we didn't have fans until about June of 2021.
Okay.
So that was also like, or we had limited fans. So that's half the year, half your season.
Yeah.
And, those 2 years are just kind of blanks,
Yeah.
You can't really do a whole lot. And then this year is just trying to catch up and grow it.
And that's really interesting. You were just pretty much presented different challenges for 2 straight years pretty much. And then you go right back to pretty much what 2019 you were trying to achieve. That's got to be really a lot on your staff and your team to almost mentally switch that to go right back to what you were focused on beforehand.
Yep. Yeah. And we, our motion graphics guy, Jonathan, he and I work on Fridays together. He kind of loads the expression, but he's also building out content for our LED displays. He's running our fish content. He's creating that. So when you get a product like All Sport Pro and you're like, we can do this. And then he's like, let's make an animation that covers that and open it up. And this is kind of what I'm designing to make the stats look like, or this is what we want a game summary GIP to look like. One of those bigger things that we did was the stoppage time. We had never displayed how much stoppage time was on. It's an announcement, but we weren't able to just like quickly add because that fluctuates so quickly. With All Sport Pro, we were able to take, it's 5 minutes of stoppage time. The All Sport Pro operator hits a +5. That data then triggers a game in progress that the time shifts, the score moves. We make a whole new GIP with a plus whatever that digit is. Okay. And that's actually a sponsored element too. So you're giving a sponsor extra coverage in a special GIP or game in progress in moments that count. And without All Sport Pro, without being able to get that fast digit, we're not able to like execute that cleanly and swiftly every game.
And I think there's a lot of value, it seems like, to using more data and being able to monetize that. Like you said, for your stoppage time, you said that, you're looking to sponsor other data elements that's provided within All Sport Pro, it sounds like, and just giving you more flexibility to have more data and use it however you want, it sounds like.
Yep.
Yeah, it's taking a simple announcement, like you said, the stoppage time announcement. It takes that simple announcement, it makes it its own graphic, and you can, give a sponsor recognition at the same time. It's really just taking a simple moment and making it something bigger and making it something that the fans can even see wherever they're at and connect to it more than just having to hear the audible announcement one time or something like that. So
when you can take over your supporting displays and make that animation happen and it's a bigger moment because people want to know how much stoppage time is there and I think we cover it pretty well just with our few displays that we have. It works out really, really well, and it's very clean and simple too. So
very much so.
That's awesome. Well, Cole, I want to thank you for letting us visit and for taking the time to talk with us today and share all about what we've got going on here at Allianz Field with the technology to the All Sport Pro Soccer and what you guys are able to do with that. It's really interesting to hear what you've done with that, how you've implemented it, and started using it for your fans. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah,
thank you, Cole.
It's great to have you guys out here, and you got to see Everton lose and everything else. So
that's
this is fun. It's a good time.
Yes, thank you very much.
Yeah.